And so we needed states to step up to supplement what Texas was doing. Through Operation Vigilant Sentry, we deployed more than 250 officers and soldiers from various state agencies to patrol Florida's southern coast. And since January of 2023, the efforts that our state law enforcement have done have led to over 17,000 repatriations. We interdict them, turn them over to the Coast Guard repatriates, and confiscation of over 420 vessels. Remember, people were predicting that there was going to be a massive influx from Haiti, given all the things that were happening there, and that has not happened, in part because Florida stepped up to protect our coastline. We, of course, have helped facilitate transports of illegal aliens to sanctuary jurisdictions, whether that's California or Martha's Vineyard. We've also had a series of legislation that we have signed into law, passed by the Florida legislature, such as mandatory E-Verify. A lot of people were saying that the economy wouldn't be able to weather that, and in reality, we've grown very strongly. The notion that somehow you need illegal foreign workers to run the economy has proven to not be true. But we also did many more things, such as preventing counties and municipalities and NGOs from issuing ID cards to illegal aliens or accepting cards issued by other jurisdictions. We've increased penalties on illegals who operate vehicles without a license and those who return to the country after already being deported. And you talk to some of these angel moms like Cayenne Michaels, one of our state representatives. A lot of times you'll have previously deported illegals are the ones who end up committing some of these criminal offenses, and that is unacceptable. We've required hospitals to collect and report health care costs for illegal aliens so the public could know the true cost of open borders on our health care system and other public services. And because we just having that reporting requirement, the amount of money that was being spent declined pretty dramatically. So that was a big success. Through our state assistance for fentanyl eradication initiative, the SAFE initiative, state and local law enforcement have arrested over 1,100 drug and gun smugglers, seized nearly $3 million in cash, 375 firearms, and 50 illegal vehicles, and removed nearly 300 pounds each of fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamines from our streets. FDLE has also arrested dozens of gang members with contacts to drug cartel members in both Mexico and in other states within the interior of the United States. We've also worked hard to secure our elections against illegal voting. And we've enacted policies that the legislature passed and I signed that has led to more accountability than we've ever seen before. Examples: arrest earlier this month of a foreigner who had 6 counts of illegal voting. An arrest in April 2024 of a 6-time convicted felon and criminal illegal alien on 3 counts of illegal voting crimes. An arrest last year of a paid petition circulator who was charged with 20 counts of criminal use of personal identification after submitting more than 700 invalid petitions following a thorough FDLE investigation. Our Department of Corrections is also overseeing several hundred open investigations, Department of Commerce is also overseeing several hundred open investigations into E-Verify enforcement tips, and will continue to make progress as our new partner in Washington, the Trump administration, is supportive of enforcing immigration laws. Last month, of course, we signed an MOU between the Florida Highway Patrol and ICE, which will help facilitate continued partnership as FHP fights illegal immigration and trafficking on our state's highways. Of course, earlier this week, we released our Focus on Fiscal Responsibility budget, and we do call for funding to be able to continue these missions. President Donald Trump won a resounding election victory, in part by promising to effectuate the largest mass deportation program in American history. Now, that is not possible to be achieved unless states like Florida actively work to facilitate the federal operations, particularly with respect to interior enforcement. So the voters provided President Trump a mandate. I know personally, having talked to him, he's very much dedicated to fulfilling that mandate, but he's not going to be able to do it if you have states that are trying to kneecap these enforcement efforts, or even if states and localities just simply sit on their hands. So today, We're proud to be one of the first states in the nation to be requested to enter into an agreement with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to execute functions of immigration enforcement within our state. And because of this, I've directed Dave Kerner, the Florida Highway Patrol, to enter into and fulfill this agreement, and have our state troopers trained and approved by ICE to perform these immigration enforcement duties. Thanks to President Trump's strong leadership, through today's agreement, our state law enforcement officers will finally be able to cooperate with the U.S. Homeland Security Authority via ICE's 287G program. This program authorizes ICE to delegate to state and local enforcement officers the authority to perform specified immigration officer functions under the agency's direction and oversight. It also allows ICE enforcement and removal operations to partner with state and local enforcement agencies to identify and remove already incarcerated criminal aliens who are eligible for removal before they are released into our community. This agreement will give FHP expanded power and authority to interrogate any suspected alien or person believed to be an alien as to their right to be in the United States. And if they are found to be in violation of proper immigration status, they will be further detained and processed for state or federal offenses. This means that FHP state law enforcement officers will be empowered to arrest and detain aliens attempting to unlawfully enter the United States, such as through ports of entry or via waters off Florida's coastline, which is, of course, where we see a lot of the direct involvement with illegals. They can also deliver detained illegal immigrants without any unnecessary delays for examination by immigration enforcement authorities for further screening. They can also enforce felony arrests, which are cognizable under any federal law regulating the admission, exclusion, expulsion, or removal of illegal aliens. They will also have the power to serve and execute warrants of arrest for immigration violations and be authorized to administer oaths and to take and consider evidence to complete required alien processing, to include fingerprinting, photographing, and interviewing, as well as the preparation of affidavits and the taking of sworn statements for ICE supervisory review. This means that state law enforcement agencies will have the power and authority to issue immigration detainers and begin establishing records of deportable or inadmissible aliens. This process of preparing charging documents ahead of time for the review of ICE officials will allow for speeding up the deportation process and the quicker removal of dangerous illegals already detained in police custody. And once charged, state authorities will also be empowered to maintain custody of aliens arrested pursuant to immigration laws and transport such aliens to ICE-approved detention facilities instead of being forced to release them back into our communities. So this is a deputization of state enforcement entities. It will allow, of course, our ongoing operations to continue, but it will also establish a permanent path forward for dealing with illegal migrants in police custody. As I said before, now is the time, with the head of steam that President Trump has being swept into office, with this as the centerpiece of his agenda, now is the final time, final opportunity to end the illegal immigration crisis in this country once and for all. We need to be willing partners with the federal administration. We complained, all these folks in Florida, particularly Republicans, complained for 4 years about Joe Biden with catch and release, with the border, with all the things they were doing, not having enough Coast Guard, which is why we had to do our operation with our vessels. People complained. Well, now we've got a partner that's committed to enforcing the law and reestablishing interior enforcement of immigration laws. So we have to step up to do our part. So this 287G agreement is the maximum amount of participation that we've been asked to do under federal law and with the Department of Homeland Security. We didn't hesitate to step up, and we will take advantage of this, and we will be strong partners. And again, the goal is we need to reestablish interior enforcement in this country. We have to fulfill the president's mission to effectuate the largest deportation program in American history. So we're stepping up. I know some other states will as well. I know some other states will fight this and do everything they can to throw up roadblocks, but we're strong partners. We understand the people spoke loud and clear, and we understand that this is important that these policies be implemented without delay. Okay, next we're going to hear from Dave Kerner, Executive Director, Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor to be here with you today, and to my partners in ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, thank you for joining us here today. You all have been just outstanding partners since day one, going back to January. We know from a personal level, you all are burning it, the candle at both ends, both in D.C. and in the field of operation where you work. You've been nothing but professional, proactive, and you've been an excellent partner thus far. And as we transition into a more of an interior, independent-focused law enforcement model, we are excited about our partnership with ICE and DHS and their agents at HSI, Homeland Security Investigations. Just to recap, over the last 8 days through multiple proactive and coordinated operations with ICE and HSI, 4 of which were associated with criminal gang organizations, including TDA and MS-13. Criminal histories of the illegal immigrants included aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, domestic battery, grand theft, illegal dealing in firearms, armed robbery, impersonating a law enforcement officer, fraud, and possession of controlled substances with intent to sell. Florida Highway Patrol has been proud to partner in these operations and also provide technical and operational assistance through the use of our drones, CIU, K-9 investigations, our aviation assets, and analytic support. To restate the obvious, Governor DeSantis has always been very forceful in the protection of our border and detention of illegal immigration under state law. When President Trump was inaugurated in January, the same Florida-centric posture prevailed throughout America, like it has been in Florida for many years under Governor DeSantis. Defend and deport is the focus now of law enforcement nationwide. A key weapon in this fight, which has been discussed at length, I'm sure we've all heard and read about the debate in the media and amongst the people in these United States about the use and activation of 287G authority, which provides at the discretion of the Department of Homeland Security for state and local law enforcement with sweeping and independent federal immigration law enforcement authorities. The governor has gone over these authorities, but they very briefly include the authority to interrogate any alien or person to believed to be an alien to his right to remain in the United States and to process for immigration violations. These authorities that the governor discussed have been delegated to state and local law enforcement. Let's be clear, President Biden had a very multi-pronged approach to the open border crisis, one of that being the open border itself. One of the most effective tangents to that was canceling and not allowing the use of 287G authority with state and local law enforcement. The intention there obviously was that with an open border, the next step would be to make sure the interior did not have the resources to deport those that did not belong in the United States of America. And while the Florida Highway Patrol is maybe the first and only law enforcement agency in Florida to take this important step, we proudly do so on behalf of all state and local law enforcement in the state of Florida. History will show that this agreement will have served as a turning point in our battle to defend our homeland and to defend our state. This agreement is larger than the words that are on its paper. It serves as a symbolic confluence of promises made and promises kept by Governor DeSantis and President Trump to secure our borders and our homeland. This agreement is larger than the words on the paper because legislatures and Congress can pass laws, but those words and mandates do not have effect without brave men and women who are willing to give life to these words. This agreement represents the commitment and dedication of Florida's nearly 2,000 state troopers to continue doing just that. It is not a coincidence that Florida, under Governor DeSantis' leadership, and our state troopers enter into this agreement first in the United States after Texas. Texas, of course, being the epicenter of the open border with illegal immigration, border chaos, and cartel operations. It isn't that we earned the right to be selected by DHS to be at the top of the line for these authorities. It is because we intentionally fought to be next in line to gain these authorities. It's because we know that they will help us keep Florida safe. It is because that this is the type of leadership and direction that Governor DeSantis has provided for law enforcement during the entirety of his term as governor. This agreement is the product of law and order under Governor DeSantis. We will not be deterred, we will not be delayed, and we will not be distracted from our mission and focus to secure the state of Florida and to help build a state immigration enforcement infrastructure that will affect generations of Floridians to come. We will not be deterred by special interest who disingenuously use misguided appeals to the emotions. We will not be delayed by indecision or interference. We will not be distracted by the yelling and screaming of people who wish to do harm to the people of Florida and wish to do harm to the people of the United States of America and our values. We understand this chapter is larger than just the mission ahead. It is also about restating and uplifting the concepts of personal accountability, the right to safe and secure community, and the ultimate dismantling of terrorist cartel organizations that utilize humans as a medium of profit and despair. On behalf of the Florida Highway Patrol, we look forward to making full use of these powerful new authorities to keep Florida safe and continuing the great work that will be accomplished working with our DHS partners in ICE and HSI and our local law enforcement partners. Governor, thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, ICE.
Good morning. On behalf of the ICE, we look forward to working with our new law enforcement partners in Florida. Thank you.
Well said. All right. And here it is. We got the agreement, ready to go. So this is, full participation from the Florida Highway Patrol and the Department of Highway Safety Motor Vehicles. We, we stand ready to help with some of our other agencies. That'll be something that DHS can determine whether they think it would be beneficial to have an FDLE, to have Fish and Wildlife, to use some of our State Guard or National Guard assets. I mean, clearly we're going to be using the State Guard to be able to help with these operations ourselves, but to the extent they want some of those involved with these authorities, we stand ready to help. This is a great start. It shows our commitment to this, and I look forward to seeing additional great things. I mean, if you think about just look what's happened in the last couple of weeks. They're busting, so ICE, as well as state partners and sometimes local partners, they're busting these Venezuelan gang members. They busted them in Central Florida, up here in North Florida, Chinese illegals down in South Florida. All this stuff is happening, and this is basically interior enforcement, street level enforcement. There's some people that say that sanctuary, that you shouldn't do anything. Now, obviously, you can't do that in Florida with our laws against that. But then there are others who say, well, until someone commits a crime and ends up in jail, then somehow no, that's too late. So obviously, if somebody's in jail, you turn them over to ICE. Of course you do that. But why would you want these gang members to just be able to run roughshod, and then you only act once there's something that they've done that is rendering them to be able to be convicted of a serious felony? The standard should be much lower than that to be able to protect the people. So what we're doing here is really significant interior enforcement. And there, if you look at the numbers so far that you've seen in terms of ICE arrests on a daily basis and extrapolate that over 4 years, there needs to be an increase on that to be able to meet the goal of having this be the largest. And I think part of it is Biden decimated this stuff. I think there's some people that are kind of, quote, in the deep state who are trying to undercut it. That's why they released some of these illegals the other day. But I think that'll ramp up, and I think you're going to see that. And you look at guys like Tom Homan, he's going to get that in line. So you'll see those numbers go up, but you need the state and local partnerships to be able to ensure that you have routine enforcement of the law. So that's what we're doing today, and I'm really thankful that we were able to enter this agreement. Yes?
Governor, 2 questions real quick. The first one is how quickly will the provisions of this agreement start taking effect, and then the other would be where are we at with the immigration bill?
So when you do this 287G, it involves really significant training. And so you're going to have our folks are going to go through, they're going to work with DHS, and they are going to be trained to be able to exercise these authorities. Now, they're not exclusively going to necessarily do this to the exclusion of others. I mean, for example, You have people that are on our highway patrol, keeping our streets safe. You have an illegal that's driving drunk, gets pulled over. They're now going to be trained to know, okay, doesn't have the ability to produce identification, acknowledges he's in the country illegally, then you know what to do with ICE to be able to protect the public. And one of the things I've just seen time and time again is when you have a fatal crash involving an illegal driver, a lot of times they've had previous times where they've been pulled over for erratic driving or drunk driving, and it's almost like catch and release. So you just do that. So there is going to be some ramp up time before all these authorities are exercised, but we think it's important to do this at the front end so that we're able to get the most out of it. Now, we have been working in good faith with folks in the legislature on making sure state law is reflecting the urgency of the situation, and that we'll be able to maximize support for the Trump administration's agenda along these lines. Clearly, I made my views known on what they produced in the special session last week. We know that we need to make sure that we have state and locals involved. We can't just be participating in catch and release. We need to be able to have a legal basis to hold people accountable if they enter illegally, and on and on. So I do think that the policy is probably less far apart than what it was last week, and we'll see. But ultimately, it's like, what do the voters expect us to do? And I think the voters expect us to be as strong as we can. I mean, someone was saying, oh, the governor is too hawkish or something on illegal immigration. Our voters will never say anything's too strong. They want strong. And so we got to make sure what we're doing is going to be really strong. But I do think that we are going to get there. And look, we've been willing to work in good faith. We were out last week educating people, letting them know the problems. People clearly had some issues with what was done. But then most of this week, we've just been working, trying to line up the policy, and then let's get off to the races and get the job done.
Does this agreement preclude the need for a statewide office of immigration enforcement or a chief officer? Because clearly, I mean, you're able to make agreements with Homeland Security that sound pretty ironclad and sound like they're going to accomplish a lot of things that the Trump administration wants to do.
So from the state level, I think you're right. I mean, we've been doing this already, right? When some of the legislators were doing some of the proposals that we were supportive of, did this chief immigration officer, it really wasn't trying to upend any apple cart. It was just to have kind of a clearinghouse so that you have someone that's actively coordinating with the sheriffs and the police chiefs. But technically, you don't need that. You could just have the agency heads do that as a matter of course. What the legislature did was they took that and put it in the Department of Agriculture and then vested the agriculture commissioner with substantive authority to basically scuttle any immigration enforcement. So they deleted all of our authorities to do the operations we're doing. So the vessels, that would stop if their bill had passed. The interdictions that Dave has been doing and FDLE, that would stop. And locals would not even be able to communicate with ICE without getting the mother may I. So they made that and I think it was unconstitutional the way they did it. I think clearly people rejected that, and they know that that's not the way to go. But the reality is we can do state level enforcement. We want legislation to say that we have a duty for both state and local. But I mean, I am gonna do it, and so it makes sense to put it in law. But I'm going to do it anyways, and we'll figure out, however, whether you have an immigration officer or not have an immigration officer. Basically, these agencies are able to work with ICE, and they're able to execute these agreements as is requested by the Department of Homeland Security. And as I said, FDLE, we stand ready. Maybe Homeland Security doesn't need that, or maybe they don't want it. We stand ready with our maritime, with Fish and Wildlife. Maybe they don't need it. Maybe they don't want it. We also stand ready with our state and National Guard. So there's a lot of possibilities here, and we're going to be able to do it, no matter what the contours are of this.
Will there be a special session to address the type of urgent legislation you're discussing?
So this is not legislation. This is an agreement. This doesn't require ratification from the legislature, just as it doesn't require ratification of the state government if a sheriff wants to enter into an agreement of 287G. And there's going to be other permutations of this. I think this program, you saw massive atrophy under Biden with this. they really weren't even doing the training. And so this is going to take probably some time for that to stand up. But you could have a police chief enter an agreement, a mayor. You could have sheriffs do it. Now, we think everyone needs to be on board. You know, what makes sense for them. There's going to be some areas that may not have the ability to have as many trained because they're shorthanded. We get that. We're not doing anything unreasonable. What we want to do is just do what the voters sent us here to do and make sure that this policy succeeds. But this is all done from agency to agency, state, federal, or local federal. And I mean, under the proposed law that they did last week, you actually could have the agriculture commissioner could have denied the ability of like a hard-charging sheriff to want to enter into an agreement. That obviously is unacceptable. We want the sheriffs want to be stronger. I don't think they're going to get stronger than us, but if they could, why would we want to reel that back in?
Governor, there have been several Miami-Dade Republican lawmakers and local leaders in Miami-Dade who have been asking Trump, urging Trump to reconsider revoking TPS for all Venezuelans. What do you say to that?
Well, what I said yesterday is Biden abused how he was doing TPS. What Trump did is consistent with the intent of the law, and he was absolutely within his rights to do that. TPS has a very limited application, and Biden really, I mean, he went haywire on everything, including parole, which was a total joke under Biden. So I think President Trump is correctly getting all this stuff back on a solid legal foundation. Yes.
I know you just named the Lieutenant Governor and Trump President when they passed the motion. Can you kind of talk about your thoughts on that and timeline of replacement?
Well, Lieutenant Governor has done a great job for Florida. She has been involved in all the successes that we've had over the last 6 years. She's been especially involved in things like the space program. She's been very supportive of our efforts to bring some sanity to higher education. And so I think in that sense, she's going to do a really good job there. FIU is really an interesting place because it's our state university in kind of this area that's really boomed over the last 4 or 5 years, where Miami has really become a hub of so much. And they had always had things going on. But the number of people that have really looked to Miami over the last 4 or 5 years has gone up considerably. I like what they've done on the Adam Smith Center. I think you have pretty much every right of center, former head of state in the entire Western Hemisphere has been there to talk. And so they've really been great at promoting free enterprise and the rule of law and constitutional government. I think they're going to be able to do a lot more of that going forward. So I think FIU has an opportunity to really expand its horizons. I think they've done a good job, but I think you're going to see them pick up even more steam with her at the helm. So it's an exciting time. And oh, by the way, I always mention it, we have very low tuition in Florida. So those folks, there's a lot of commuters that go to FIU. They're able to afford the tuition. Even if they don't get a bright future, you can afford it by just working a part-time job. So you don't even need to go into debt. And I think that's really important that our students here, our young people, are able to get an education without ending up $100,000, $150,000 in debt. So we obviously need to land the plane on this immigration stuff. James has been working with the folks in the House and Senate. We want to bring this to a conclusion. I think we're getting close to that. And then at that point, we will transition over. So hopefully that is sooner rather than later.
What was your office's role? The FIU board chair mentioned that your office reached out about Lieutenant Governor Nunez. What was its role in helping her get appointed?
Well, obviously, I'm supportive of the appointment. This was something that she was interested in doing. She had my endorsement and my support, and I think that she's somebody that is very well regarded in the community, anyways. But yeah, this is something that and I've supported other people from time to time. Some of them have not quite made it. If you look back at some of the more recent ones in South Florida, and some of them are not too happy about that. But that's just the reality that we can put an endorsement. We can say this is someone, but ultimately the trustees do have the ability to look at this and make their determinations. And I think enough of them were really excited about the prospect of what Lieutenant Governor Nunez is going to be able to bring to Florida International University. So I didn't know that had actually happened yet when I walked out here. I think it was misreported that somehow she's going to resign today. That is not true. There's going to be things that probably need to happen with contracts, approvals from the different levels. We obviously have a board of governors in Florida, so that'll all happen. But I do anticipate that all landing before the legislative session starts, and I know she'll probably want to be making the rounds and speaking with the legislature about supporting FIU. Okay, thanks everybody.
Right.